Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're setting our sights on a continent that, well, it often conjures these images of an untouchable, maybe even forbidden land, Antarctica.
Mm.
There's
Mhm.
this really pervasive belief out there, isn't there? That it's this mysterious, off-limits place, maybe shrouded in secrecy, perhaps even, hiding something profound from the public eye.
Yeah, you hear that a lot, the forbidden continent idea.
Okay, let's unpack this. Is Antarctica truly forbidden? I mean, is it some kind of exclusive club that nobody can get into?
Well, the short answer, no, not really. Not in the way most people imagine.
Right. So the reality is, well, it's far more intricate, much more layered, and honestly, probably more fascinating.
Exactly.
Antarctica isn't forbidden like a national border sealed off by some single country. Instead, it's meticulously governed by this incredibly sophisticated international legal framework, the Antarctic Treaty System, or ATS for short.
What's fascinating here is precisely that nuance. You see, this isn't about some secretive lockdown or a conspiracy trying to hide information. Not at all. It's actually a remarkable achievement in international cooperation, especially when you think about the geopolitical climate back when it was first set up.
Right, Cold War era.
Exactly.
Mm.
Now, while it's true that, yes, certain areas are restricted and access is definitely not a free-for-all, the continent is accessible,
Hmm.
but under very specific, very stringent conditions.
So it's the rigorous control, not outright prohibition, that really defines its status.
That's the key.
Yeah.
That's what makes it unique on the global stage.
And that's basically our core mission for this deep dive. We want to peel back those layers and really understand why access is so strictly controlled. We'll explore the documents, the principles that define this unique governance, and crucially, try to uncover any underlying tensions or, future challenges within that framework. So
Yeah.
you might come in wondering, why can't I just go? Or maybe even, are they hiding something down there?
Right, the hidden information angle.
Yeah, we're looking beyond just simple prohibitions to the profound, maybe sometimes surprising reasons behind all these rules, and to see if there are any, let's say, hidden aspects or potential controversies embedded right there in the documents themselves.
Absolutely. And the foundational principle, the thing underpinning the entire Antarctic Treaty System, it's actually crystal clear.
Okay.
It's to reserve Antarctica exclusively for peaceful purposes and for scientific research. That was it.
A direct response to fears of conflict.
A direct response to very real concerns that the continent could become an arena for international discord, maybe even conflict. And this commitment, it's formally enshrined.
How so?
Well, the 1991 Protocol on Environmental Protection to the Antarctic Treaty, we'll talk more about that later, it explicitly designates Antarctica as a natural reserve devoted to peace and science.
So not just a nice idea, but legally binding.
Legally binding, it's not just a label. It shapes every single regulation, every rule, every permit requirement we're going to discuss. And it really clarifies why the rules are so stringent. The whole continent is legally committed to preservation, to non-exploitation. That's very different from other places that just have, specific protected zones.
Right. It elevates the whole purpose.
It does. It goes beyond just environmental protection to this broader commitment to global heritage, scientific advancement. It makes Antarctica unlike any other continent on Earth.
So to really appreciate how groundbreaking the system is, we probably need to rewind a bit. Before the Antarctic Treaty existed,
Definitely helps to see the contrast.
picture this, the early to mid-20th century. Antarctica wasn't seen as this pristine scientific lab. It was basically a stage for geopolitical ambition.
Oh, absolutely.
Nations were actively asserting territorial claims, drawing these wedge-shaped pies on maps, like slicing up a giant cake.
Yeah, overlapping claims too. Very messy.
And engaging in what you can only call a fervent scramble for influence. You had countries like Argentina, Australia, Chile, France, New Zealand, Norway, the UK, all with these overlapping, often conflicting claims to huge parts of the continent.
Imagine the tension. One country sets up a base, another sets up shop right next door.
Planting flags, doing symbolic stuff to try and solidify their claim.
Right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about lines on a map. It was about potential resources, strategic positioning, national prestige.
So this huge, potentially resource-rich, strategically important continent was basically a ticking time bomb, a frozen powder keg.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
A real risk of conflict over chunks of ice.
And knowing that history, that potential for conflict, it makes the step taken in 1959 seem even more radical.
Indeed. The signing of that 1959 Antarctic Treaty, it was nothing short of a diplomatic marvel. Especially, as you said, right in the middle of the Cold War.
Yeah.
Its main goal was truly revolutionary. Make sure Antarctica would only be used for peace and science.
To militarizing a whole continent.
Effectively, yes. Setting aside those really contentious sovereignty disputes, they could easily have led to serious international incidents. It paved the way for this, well, unprecedented international cooperation. It showed nations could find common ground, even with huge ideological divides.
So what was the trick? How did they actually do it?
Ah, the genius of the treaty. It lies in a very specific legal innovation. It essentially froze all the existing territorial claims.
Froze them.
Yeah, and explicitly prevented new ones from being asserted. The wording is a bit dense, but basically it says, let me see, no acts or activities shall constitute a basis for asserting, supporting, or denying a claim. No new claim shall be asserted while the present treaty is in force.
Okay, legal jargon aside, what does that mean practically?
Practically, it meant, okay, nobody really owns Antarctica. It neutralized the biggest potential source of conflict, fighting over who owned which piece of the pie.
Right.
And it let nations collaborate on science and environmental protection without getting bogged down in who owned what. That was fundamental.
And that's why it's not forbidden by any single country. It's managed cooperatively.
Exactly. It's a testament to diplomacy, really.
Yeah.
Overcoming national interests for a bigger global good.
And we're not talking about just a small part of Antarctica. The treaty covers, well, everything.
Pretty much. It applies comprehensively to the entire area south of 60 degrees south latitude.
So every bit of land, every ice shelf, every island.
Within that huge region, yeah. We're talking about roughly 14 million square kilometers. That's bigger than Europe.
Wow. That broad scope is key, then, for unified governance.
Absolutely. It prevents fragmented management, which could easily lead to exploitation or environmental damage. It's a holistic approach, almost unique in the world.
And how is it actually governed? Who makes the decisions?
Well, the structure itself is also pretty unique. It centers around the consultative parties and these annual meetings called Antarctic Treaty Consultative Meetings, or ATCMs.
Consultative parties?
Who
are
are
they?
It started with the original 12 nations who signed back in '59. But then, any other nation that shows its commitment by doing substantial scientific research activity there can become a consultative party.
So you earn your way in through science.
Exactly. Right now, there were 29 of these voting nations. Countries like the U.S., Russia, China, India, many European and South American states. A real mix.
And they meet every year?
Yep, annually at the ETCMs. They share information, consult on issues, and this is crucial. They agree on new measures to uphold the treaty's principles.
Are there other countries involved?
Yes, there are also acceding parties. These are non-voting nations that support the system, like Canada or Malaysia. They broaden the international backing.
But the power, the voting power, is tied to the science.
That's the significant part. Decision-making power comes from active scientific engagement, not just political clout or economic muscle.
That's a really interesting model.
It is. It means if you want to say in Antarctica's future, you need to invest in and conduct real science there. It incentivizes and reinforces the treaty's core purpose, science and cooperation.
So for you listening, it's not some secret club. It's a forum where doing science gives you influence.
Precisely. It's a collaborative effort where science is, in a way, the currency of power.
Okay, so we have the 1959 treaty freezing claims and promoting peace and science. What comes next?
The next really crucial layer of protection arrived in 1991. It's the Protocol on Environmental Protection to the Antarctic Treaty, usually called the Madrid Protocol.
Madrid Protocol, got it.
This is where the continent's environmental status really got cemented. It elevated protection to, well, an unprecedented level.
How so?
It formally designated the entire Antarctic Treaty area, remember, south of 60 degrees south, as a natural reserve devoted to peace and science.
The same phrase as before.
Yes, but now formally designating the whole area as a reserve, putting comprehensive environmental protection right at the forefront of absolutely everything humans do there.
So, again, legally binding. Every action has to prioritize the environment.
That's the core of it. And the Madrid Protocol reinforced and expanded on the original treaty's bans.
Like the military ban.
Exactly. It reiterates, no military bases, no fortifications, no maneuvers, no weapons testing. Keeps the continent free from military activity unless it's supporting peaceful research.
Ah, that's the caveat you hear about. Military personnel can be there.
Yes, but only for peaceful support. Logistics, technical help for science operating ships, aircraft, things like that. You might see a military plane flying scientists in, but never war games.
Okay. What else did Madrid ban?
It also strictly prohibits nuclear tests and the disposal of radioactive waste anywhere in the treaty area. Super critical, given the global fears about nukes and contamination back then.
Clear, strong bans, reflecting that commitment to keeping it pristine.
Absolutely. Unequivocal.
All right, now let's get to what many people might see as the real controversy, or maybe the hidden information part. The ban on mineral resources.
Yes. Article 7 of the Madrid Protocol.
It imposes an indefinite ban on any activity relating to mineral resources other than scientific research. Indefinite.
Sounds pretty permanent, right?
Yeah.
Forbidden forever.
It sounds permanent, and that word indefinite is used. But here's where the nuance and the real tension, the thing that isn't exactly hidden but maybe not widely grasped, comes in.
Okay.
While the ban is called indefinite, meaning it has no set end date right now, the protocol itself, in Article 25, explicitly states that this ban can be reviewed after the year 2048.
Reviewed after 2048. So not necessarily permanent?
Not necessarily permanent. It's written right there. And the implications are, well, profound. It means Antarctica's future isn't permanently locked away from mineral exploitation.
So indefinite means indefinite unless we decide otherwise later.
Pretty much. It provides incredibly strong protection now. No mining is happening. But that 2048 review, it introduces a clear future vulnerability, a known decision point down the road.
And why does that matter so much?
Think about it. What will global resource demands look like in, 25 years or so?
Higher, presumably. Much higher. Exactly. Population's growing, demand for rare earths, energy sources.
Right.
And what about extraction technology? It will inevitably advance, maybe making things possible then that aren't now.
Right.
So this commitment to non-exploitation will be tested. That review clause is a crucial long-term issue for the continent's environmental future. It highlights that the forbidden aspect of mining depends on continued international agreement.
An agreement that could face huge pressure.
Immense pressure.
Yeah.
So it's not about hiding something now. It's about acknowledging a future challenge, a potential flashpoint that's explicitly built right into the protection framework itself.
A deferred decision, a compromise made back in 91.
A compromise, yes.
Yeah.
Made during the negotiations. And many worry that when 2048 rolls around under potentially very different global conditions, that decision might be revisited, putting Antarctica's pristine state at risk. It's the biggest known future tension in the documents.
That distinction between indefinite and subject to review is absolutely critical then. It shows the compromises needed even in groundbreaking agreements.
It does.
But the Madrid Protocol, it goes way beyond just those big bans on military activity and mining, right? You mentioned it was comprehensive.
Oh, incredibly comprehensive. It's supported by 6 detailed annexes.
Yeah.
And these aren't just broad statements. They are granular, legally binding frameworks. They cover almost every aspect of human activity there.
6 annexes. Can you give us a feel for what they cover? What do they actually do?
Absolutely. Think of them as layers of a shield protecting the continent in different ways. They make the protocol a truly holistic environmental management system.
Okay.
We can maybe group them. First, there's managing human impact before it even happens. That's Annex I. Environmental Impact Assessment, or EIA.
EIA. Heard of that.
It's foundational. It requires every activity, no matter how small it seems, to undergo a prior assessment of its potential environmental impacts. It's all about foresight,
Right.
planning ahead, mitigation.
So building a hut, bringing in new equipment, it all needs assessing.
Everything.
Okay, what else?
Then there's direct protection for the life that's already there. Annex 2 is on the conservation of Antarctic fauna and flora.
Protecting the penguins and seals.
Penguins, seals, birds, but also the plants, the tiny invertebrates.
Yeah.
Everything native. It prohibits taking, which is a very broad term.
What does taking include?
Killing, injuring, capturing, handling, even just disturbing native mammals or birds without a very special permit. You can't significantly mess with native plants either.
So don't get too close to the penguins, don't drive over the moss.
Basically, yes. And crucially, this annex also has an absolute ban on introducing any non-native species. Seeds on your boots, live animals. Absolutely forbidden. We'll talk more about biosecurity later, but this is huge for protecting that isolated ecosystem.
Makes sense. Any others focused on protection?
Yes. Linked to that is Annex 1, Prevention of Marine Pollution. Antarctica is surrounded by the Southern Ocean, so this is vital. It sets strict rules for ships discharging waste sewage, garbage, and bans certain harmful pollutants from being released into the ocean, protecting marine life and the whole connected system.
Okay, so EIAs, protecting life, preventing pollution. What about our own mess?
Right, that's Annex 3, Waste Disposal and Waste Management. This isn't just about managing current waste. It mandates strict waste management plans for everyone. And critically, it requires the removal of all waste from the continent.
All of it, even old stuff.
Yes, including a proactive commitment to clearing out old abandoned bases, waste dumps from decades ago. It's about remediation, cleaning up the past, aiming for leave no trace on a massive scale.
That sounds like a huge undertaking.
It is a real commitment to stewardship.
Okay. Any other annexes?
Two more key ones. Annex V covers area protection and management. While the whole continent is a reserve, this annex allows for designating specific areas like specially protected areas or specially managed areas that need even higher levels of protection due to unique values.
Like sensitive breeding grounds.
Exactly. Or important historical sites. And finally, Annex 6 deals with liability arising from environmental emergencies. This sets up a framework for who's responsible if something goes wrong, like an oil spill. Accountability.
Wow. 6 annexes covering EIA, flora fauna, waste, marine pollution, protected areas, liability. That is incredibly comprehensive.
It really is. It's not just a statement of intent. It's a legally binding, detailed framework trying to address almost every conceivable human impact.
And that whole system is why Antarctica remains largely pristine and why access is so tightly controlled.
It's a primary reason, yes. It's a proactive, holistic design, especially unique for a place without a single government. It's aimed at anticipating and preventing harm, a real achievement of international cooperation.
Okay, that lays out the why of protection really clearly. So let's shift to the how. How does someone actually get access? Because, as you said, it's not a free-for-all. It's this strict permit system, mandatory environmental assessments, all designed to uphold everything we've just discussed.
You're absolutely right. Getting into Antarctica, whether you're a scientist, a tourist, or doing anything else, isn't like crossing a normal border. It's all governed by a rigorous permit system.
Permit for everything.
Pretty much any activity. Research, building facilities, exploration, tourism. You need prior authorization from your relevant national authority.
So my country's government has to approve it.
Yes. For instance, if you're a U.S. citizen planning a private trip, maybe sailing your own yacht down there, you have to legally notify the Department of State months in advance. There's a specific form, DS-4131.
3 months' notice.
At least. This national permitting system is the gatekeeper. It ensures everyone planning to go complies with the treaty principles and the environmental protocol. It's how they regulate who goes and under what conditions, making sure it aligns with Antarctica being a natural reserve.
And central to that regulation is the environmental impact assessment. The EIA process, which you mentioned, is mandated for all activities.
All right.
This isn't just paperwork, is it? It's meant to actually foresee impacts and make sure there are plans to mitigate damage, maybe even restore things if needed.
Exactly. It's a critical tool.
Yeah.
But you asked earlier about challenges in implementing it in such a vast, remote place.
Yeah, how does that actually work on the ground? Or on the ice, I guess.
Well, Annex I sets up a pretty sophisticated 3-tiered EIA procedure. It's not just one size fits all.
3 tiers, why?
It's about proportionate risk management. Activities with higher potential for significant impact get much more scrutiny, including public and international review. Lower impact stuff, a quicker process. It focuses the effort where it's needed most.
Okay, what are the tiers?
Tier 1 is a preliminary assessment, or PA. This is for activities expected to have less than a minor or transitory impact. Think routine cleanups, maybe fixing up an old historic hut. It's usually an internal review by the National Forest.
Simple stuff, simple check.
Basically. Tier 2 is an initial environmental evaluation, or IE. This is for activities likely to have a minor or transitory impact.
Okay, examples.
Things like putting up a new building at an existing station or maybe a major deep ice core drilling project. These get a deeper look by the national authority, who then decides if it can go ahead based on that evaluation.
And the top tier.
That's the Comprehensive Environmental Evaluation, or CEE. This is for activities projected to have more than a minor or transitory impact.
Big projects.
Big projects. Building a whole new research station from scratch, constructing a new runway on crushed rock, major drilling into rock or sediment. These require a CEE.
And that process is much tougher.
Incredibly stringent. Draft CEEs have to be made publicly available. They're circulated to all the treaty parties. They go to the Committee for Environmental Protection, the CEP, for review before the annual ATCM meeting.
So international peer review.
Exactly, a global quality control. And the final CEE has to address all the comments received before the activity can even start. It ensures major impacts get thoroughly scrutinized internationally before getting the green light.
That sounds robust.
Hmm.
But you mentioned a practical challenge earlier around the phrase minor or transitory impact. You said it was ambiguous.
Yes, that's a known issue. That ambiguity continues to lead to inconsistency among parties regarding which level of EIA gets applied.
So one country might call something minor, another might not.
Potentially, yes. One national authority might assess, say, a certain type of drilling project under an IEE. Another country, looking at a similar project, might interpret the potential impact differently and push for a full CEE.
Leading to different levels of scrutiny for similar activities?
Exactly. And potentially different environmental outcomes. So it's not a hidden secret being deliberately concealed. It's an acknowledged challenge within the system. They're constantly working towards greater harmonization, trying to get everyone on the same page, but getting perfect consistency across 29 voting nations. It's an ongoing effort.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Tourism and private expeditions. For many of our listeners, that's probably how they'd imagine going to Antarctica. How do they fit into this system? Who's overseeing that? It seems like tourism is booming.
It has grown significantly, yeah. From a real niche adventure to a pretty major industry. And it's managed through a mix of national regulations, the permits we talked about, and really importantly, self-regulation by the industry itself.
Self-regulation.
Yes, through the International Association of Antarctica Tour Operators, or IATO. You'll hear that acronym a lot.
IATO.
It was set up back in 1991. It's a voluntary group at the tour operators themselves. Now, its members are all authorized by their home governments, but they also agree to follow operational standards that often go beyond the minimum legal requirements.
Like what?
Strict guidelines for wildlife, watching minimum distances from penguins, seals, really strict waste management protocols, meticulous biosecurity procedures for passengers, boot washing, gear cleaning, comprehensive briefings for tourists before they even land.
So they police themselves to some extent.
To a large extent, yes. And IATO actually participates as an invited expert at the big ATCM meetings. They provide visitor data, offer specialized advice. It's a vital public-private partnership, especially since there's no single government there. Managing tens of thousands of tourists each season relies heavily on this kind of industry buy-in and self-regulation.
And for the average tourist on a cruise, do they need to apply for that permit themselves?
Generally, no. The commercial cruise operators handle all the necessary permits for their passengers as part of the package deal. It streamlines it for the individual.
But if I wanted to sail my own boat there, or ski across,
then you are personally responsible. You'd have to initiate the permit application process with your national authority. For U.S. citizens, again, that's the DS-4131 form to the State Department, well in advance. They need to vet even individual adventurers.
Makes sense. Okay, beyond permits, what about health and safety? You hear these stories. Antarctica is extreme, dangerous. Do you really need to be some kind of super athlete to go?
Well, the stories are true.
Yeah?
And the health and safety protocols absolutely reflect that harsh reality.
How so?
If you're part of an official national program, like the U.S. Antarctic Program, you often need rigorous medical and dental exams.
Dental.
Oh, yeah. An untreated toothache in the middle of nowhere Antarctica can become a life-threatening emergency. They check existing conditions, immunizations, the works.
What about for tourists?
No specific vaccinations required for Antarctica itself, but you definitely need to check requirements for any countries you transit through: Chile, Argentina, New Zealand, South Africa.
Right.
But here's the critical one: travel insurance. You need comprehensive insurance that specifically covers Antarctica and includes emergency medical evacuation.
Medevac. That sounds expensive.
Hugely expensive. A medevac from Antarctica can cost upwards of $250,000. And that's if the weather even allows a plane to get in.
Wow.
So tour operators almost always mandate this insurance. Many also require passengers to fill out medical screening forms, sometimes assessed by specialized maritime doctors. They need to know you're fit for potentially rough seas, remote conditions, stable chronic conditions.
So it's not just bureaucracy. It's serious safety stuff.
Absolutely not bureaucracy. It's not an attempt to hide anything or keep people out arbitrarily. These are direct, necessary consequences of the extreme isolated environment and the almost total lack of emergency response or advanced medical facilities.
Critical safety measures.
They prioritize human well-being. They effectively determine who can safely access this uniquely challenging place. Your life could literally depend on these checks. The nearest hospital might be thousands of miles away across stormy seas.
It really drives home how different Antarctica is. Okay, so human safety is paramount. But all these rules, permits, EIAs, health checks, they ultimately serve that bigger goal: safeguarding Antarctica's unique environment. Let's dig into what specifically these regulations are protecting. It's about this fragile, isolated ecosystem, right?
Precisely. Antarctica's ecosystem is incredibly sensitive because it's been so isolated. You have native flora, lichens, mosses, just two types of flowering plants, and fauna, like penguins, seals, unique marine life, all evolved without many natural defenses against outsiders.
It's making them really vulnerable.
Profoundly vulnerable, which is why Annex 2, the conservation one we mentioned, is so strict. Remember the ban on taking?
Killing, injuring, disturbing.
Right, without a specific permit. And that applies to the whole web of life, not just the big animals. Strict rules on how close tour groups can get, usually 5 meters from penguins and seals, to prevent stress, especially during breeding.
And the ban on bringing in non-native species.
Absolutely critical. That stringent ban on introducing any non-native species, live, poultry, pets, even seeds, accidentally carried in. The only exception is for tightly controlled science, and that's rare.
Why so strict?
Because the risk is enormous. Introduced species could outcompete natives, bring diseases, change habitats, become predators. The native species just haven't evolved defenses against these threats.
Like the stories about rats on subantarctic islands wiping out birds.
Exactly, that kind of devastating impact.
Yeah.
Though mostly on the islands, the principle applies continent-wide, and this explains those meticulous biosecurity protocols everyone has to follow.
The boot washing, gear cleaning.
Mandatory boot washing with disinfectants between sites. Thorough cleaning of all outdoor gear. Keeping strict distances from wildlife, moving slowly and quietly. These aren't just suggestions, they're rules.
A direct response to understanding that ecological vulnerability.
Deep scientific understanding, informing legal mandates and practical rules. Protecting the ecosystem right down to the microscopic level.
That attention to biosecurity is almost obsessive, but clearly necessary. And it seems mirrored in the approach to waste and pollution. You mentioned they even clean up old messes.
Absolutely. The protocol mandates rigorous waste management plans for every activity. And, as we discussed, the comprehensive removal of all waste from the continent.
Not just current waste, but old stuff, too.
Yes, that commitment to actively clearing old abandoned bases, derelict buildings, forgotten waste dumps from decades ago, it reflects this deep dedication to remediation, to restoring the continent.
Imagine the logistics of that. Dismantling steel structures, digging up old landfills in that environment.
It's a massive challenge, but it's a legally binding commitment. It shows a really high level of environmental stewardship, undoing past mistakes, aiming for that leave no trace ideal on a continental scale.
What about other pollution rules?
Open burning of trash is strictly prohibited. There are comprehensive rules for ships discharging waste to prevent marine pollution. And specific harmful pollutants are completely banned, things like PCBs, non-sterile soil, polystyrene packaging, most pesticides, keeping the continent free of persistent chemicals.
Okay, so the whole continent is a reserve, but you mentioned some areas get even more protection under Annex V. Why do specific parts need extra safeguards?
Right. While the entire continent has this baseline protection, the ATS system allows for designating specific sites that need enhanced conservation because of their unique values. The big annual meeting, the ATCM, designates these areas.
What kinds of areas are we talking about?
Well, there are Antarctic Specially Protected Areas, or ASPAs. There are 72 of these right now.
ASPAs. What makes them special?
Outstanding environmental, scientific, historic, aesthetic, or wilderness values. Or maybe there's ongoing research there that needs extra protection from disturbance. Think unique geology, a super-sensitive wildlife breeding site, a place of historical significance.
And access is restricted.
Very restricted. You need a special permit from a national authority just to enter an ASPA. And everything you do inside has to follow a specific management plan. These are the most highly protected zones.
Okay. Any other types?
Yes, there are also Antarctic Specially Managed Areas, or ASMAs. There are 6 of these currently.
ASMAs, how are they different?
They're usually designated to help manage areas where different human activities might otherwise clash or have cumulative impacts. Maybe an area with a busy research station, a nearby tourist landing site, and a science sampling zone, all close together.
So coordination is key.
Exactly. An ASMA management plan helps coordinate everything to minimize environmental harm and conflict. Unlike ASPAs, you don't usually need a special permit just for general entry into an ASMA. But all activities inside are governed by that detailed management plan. It's about smart management in busy spots.
Got it. And historical sites.
Yes. Historic Sites and Monuments, or HSMs. There are 90 listed sites. Old huts, cairns, monuments, places with recognized historic value from the eras of exploration and early science. They're protected from damage or removal, preserving that heritage.
So a multi-layered system of protection. But you mentioned a challenge here too, something about marine areas.
Yes, despite this seemingly robust system, there's a known disparity. There are currently only 6 entirely marine ASPAs.
Only 6 for the entire Southern Ocean area covered by the treaty.
Exactly. Given the immense size and critical ecological importance of the Southern Ocean, that number seems low. It reveals a potential gap in protection for marine environments compared to land areas, especially worrying given threats like fishing and climate change impacting the ocean.
So another known challenge the system is grappling with.
Precisely. It's not hidden, it's an area of active work and concern. There's mention of an international project to classify Southern Ocean ecosystems, which is a direct recognition of this gap and points towards future efforts to strengthen marine conservation. The ATS is trying to adapt and improve protection for all of Antarctica's environments.
It's clear the ATS is this incredibly robust framework, really a testament to international cooperation, but it's not like the job is done, right? As we wrap up, we need to acknowledge that despite all this governance, Antarctica faces huge, escalating environmental threats.
You're absolutely right. The system is strong, but the pressures are immense and growing. And many of the biggest threats are largely external, driven by global processes, but hitting Antarctica hard.
Like climate change.
Foremost among them, yes. Climate change and global warming, unequivocally identified as the greatest long-term threat. And we're seeing the effects right now. Traumatic.
What kind of effect?
Rapidly warming seas around the continent. Significant loss of sea ice, which is vital habitat. Land-based ice melting, glaciers retreating, huge ice shelves collapsing, some the size of small countries just breaking off.
Wow.
Then there's oceanic acidification. More CO2 in the atmosphere makes the ocean more acidic. This is already impacting tiny marine creatures like certain snails crucial for the food web, damaging their shells.
And the penguins.
We're seeing changes in breeding populations and ranges for some species, like Adelie penguins. Numbers declining in some areas, increasing elsewhere. It shows profound ecosystem shifts are happening because of the warming. Climate change is literally reshaping the continent and its life.
What else poses a major threat?
Fishing pressures are a big one, both legal and illegal fishing. As oceans elsewhere get depleted, there's more interest in Antarctic fisheries, especially for valuable toothfish and, crucially, for krill.
Krill, the little shrimp-like things.
Exactly. They are the absolute foundation of the Antarctic food web. Whales, seals, penguins. So much depends on krill. Heavy fishing could devastate the entire ecosystem. It's a huge concern.
And illegal fishing.
Yes, illegal, unregulated, and unreported IUU fishing is a constant battle. It undermines conservation efforts, threatens fish stocks, seabirds, marine mammals. It's hard to police such vast waters.
Okay, climate change. Fishing. What else?
Invasive species. This is linked to more human activity and the warming climate. Non-native organisms can hitchhike in on ships, cargo, even people's clothes.
And now they can survive there because it's warmer.
Some can, yes. We mentioned rats on subantarctic islands devastating birds. It shows how human activity, even unintentional, combined with climate change, creates brand new vulnerabilities for this previously isolated place.
And just general pollution, does that reach Antarctica?
It does. Pollution is a real issue. Chemical pollutants like CFCs that cause the ozone hole travel through the atmosphere and end up in Antarctic ice and wildlife, even though they originated thousands of miles away.
And local pollution.
Closer to bases and activity sites, yes. Discarded equipment, spills of fuel or chemicals, fishing nets lost at sea, plastics, potential tourism-related pollution like small oil spills or waste. It all adds up and degrades the environment, threatening wildlife. Monitoring and enforcement remain challenging.
And circling back to that core tension, the mineral resources ban and the 2048 review, how big a threat is that, really?
It remains one of the biggest question marks for the future. That future tension explicitly built into the documents. While mining is banned now by the Madrid Protocol, that indefinite ban, with the review clause after 2048, is a significant future vulnerability.
Like a ticking clock, almost.
In a way, it was a compromise back then, but it set a date for reckoning. As global resource demand grows, as technology advances, the pressure to revisit that ban will be immense.
A battle between exploitation and preservation.
Exactly. Arguments about global need versus environmental protection. The outcome of that review, whenever it happens after 2048, will be absolutely critical for the continent's long-term future. It's arguably the biggest challenge to keeping Antarctica a pristine natural reserve. And that debate will only get louder as 2048 gets closer. And lastly, we can't ignore the direct impacts of infrastructure. Even well-managed scientific research needs bases, roads on ice, fuel storage, runways.
The footprint of just being there.
Right. Construction, operation, waste disposal.
Yeah.
Even with the best intentions and rules, human presence inevitably alters the local environment to some degree.
It really sounds like a constant balancing act with these huge pressures building. But the ATS itself, the treaty system, it's not just sitting still, is it? It's adapting.
Absolutely not static. International cooperation is still the key, and the ATS is a living system trying to adapt. The annual ATCMs are where they tackle new challenges. Well, recently they developed specific protocols for dealing with avian influenza, bird flu, for tourism and research stations because of outbreaks affecting wild birds. That shows responsiveness to immediate threats.
And the Environmental Committee, the CET?
The CEP continuously advises the ATCM on how the protocol is working, suggesting improvements, pushing for better harmonization, and efforts are ongoing to strengthen the protected area system, especially trying to fill those gaps in marine protection we talked about.
So connecting it to the bigger picture.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Antarctic Treaty System, while remarkably successful for decades in keeping the peace and fostering science, is facing unprecedented pressures now from global changes in human activity. The big test will be whether the treaty parties can maintain that consensus, can strengthen protections further, especially regarding climate change and the future of that mining ban. That will be critical for Antarctica continuing as this unique natural reserve for peace and science. It's an ongoing global experiment in shared responsibility.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, the core takeaway for you, our listener, really is this. Antarctica is far from some forbidden continent, hidden away in secrecy.
Not at all.
Instead, it's a globally managed natural reserve. Access is highly regulated, yes, but it stands as this remarkable testament to international cooperation.
And understanding this sophisticated framework, hopefully, empowers you with some unique insights. Insights into global governance, into environmental stewardship. It's not some dusty old agreement. It's a living, breathing set of commitments, constantly being tested by new realities, new challenges.
Right.
It's complex, for sure, but it's a system that, by and large, has succeeded in its mission, making Antarctica this unparalleled example of shared global responsibility.
So the controversy isn't really about outright prohibition or some hidden agenda. It's more about the nuanced challenges, the future tensions within this complex, evolving system designed to protect it.
Yeah.
It's about how an agreement made decades ago with that indefinite mining ban that can be reviewed after 2048 now faces the stark realities of soaring global resource demands in a rapidly changing climate, which really raises an important question for all of us. As we look towards 2048 and that potential review of the mineral resources ban, and as climate change keeps piling pressure on the continent, what responsibility do we as individuals actually hold in advocating for this unique, incredibly vulnerable place?
Yeah, what's our role?
How might you contribute to ensuring Antarctica remains this beacon of peace and science for generations to come, well beyond that future review date? This raises an important question. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of Antarctic governance. We really hope you feel a little more informed and maybe a lot more curious about this incredible continent. Until next time, keep exploring.